And now with us in the Hyundai Texans radio studio, it's Texans Executive Vice President and General Manager Nick Caserio. Nick, welcome. Good to see you.
Fellas, good to see you guys.
Titan week, big week, back in the division. Let's recap the Jets a little bit before we get into Tennessee. What did you see on Sunday? I know it did not go as well as you wanted at all, but what needs to be worked on coming out of this game?
Yeah, bottom line is we just didn't execute the things that we needed to execute in the game. Give the Jets credit. They made more plays than we did. When you kind of look and identify some of the keys that we had earmarked going into the game, offensively and defensively, and we really came up short in all 2 or 3 areas, or the bullets that we identified. So credit to them, but we really didn't deserve to win because we didn't play well enough. So we have to make some corrections. And it's just like any week, you kind of have to flush it regardless of the outcome and then prepare for the opponent, try to make some adjustments and modifications. We'll look at where we are with some of the players that may or may not be available for this week. So just kind of get ready for this week, kind of understand what happened, maybe ID some things that we can maybe fix, and there'll be maybe some carryover. Otherwise, we kind of have to flip and focus on the Titans and what they do.
Nick, all year, you and D'Amico, you two have talked whenever we've asked you about injuries. You've always said, look, we'll figure it out. I mean, there's really no other tack you can take. But Sunday, it felt like, oh my gosh, they're really kind of piling up. How tough and how difficult does that make the week for you beyond what it's been already this year?
Yeah, you sort of have to react to what happens during the course of the game and just understand the nature of the player's condition and what his availability is. Really, you want to look in the short term, is he going to be available for this particular game? So the sooner we have that information, the better, then we can plan accordingly. So injuries are part of football. Sure. We see it all around the league. Essentially, every team has to deal with something on some level. What it does, it creates another opportunity for another player that maybe hasn't played as much. So we feel comfortable with the players that are in the building. Some players have shown up consistently week to week in practice. They haven't really had the opportunity in the game. So maybe this is the week where they get that opportunity. So you never know when it's going to happen, why it occurs. You just have to be prepared and then go through the week, go through the process, and get ready to play football.
Well, I think it always points out, and we're 2.5 months away from the Combine right now, but it always points out how people get obsessed with the starting lineup. But as you just pointed out in this league, that could not be less relevant. It's about the entire depth chart and beyond, right?
Mark, it's interesting. We were just actually having this conversation, James Lipford and I think there's propensity league-wide. Everybody kind of focuses on, quote-unquote, the stars, but there's 53 players on a roster, and there's 11 players on the field on a snap on each play. So we have to look – our responsibility is to look at the roster top to bottom, 1 through 53, plus the practice squad, which we've talked about, I would say, excessively. So that's the reality. That's the truth. And you've seen a lot of players who maybe they're not highly thought of. They get an opportunity, and they become more of a household name. I mean, Tommy DeVito is a good example of a player who really nobody even was talking about, and he's had an opportunity to play here. And the Giants have won 3 games. It's credit to Coach Dable and Joe and what they've done. But that's the NFL. That happens to everybody. Every team's dealing with it. I mean, you just look around the league. It's inevitably each game something happens. You're looking at, we'll talk about the Titans here in a minute, but you talk about the best player in the league, one of the best players on the league, didn't play last night, and they went down to Miami and won anyways. So that's just the NFL. So our responsibility is to try to identify players that we think have the right traits and characteristics, come in here with the right mindset and the right work ethic, and then go out there and prepare to play. Everybody has to prepare to play. We're going to make players inactive, and there's going to be players that remain in the practice squad. At some point, you're going to need everybody. That's the truth.
Do you have any players represented by Tommy DeVito's agent?
we have his agent's a really good dude. Sean, Sean Stellato's his agent, but we've had a good relationship going back to our time in New England. I would say he's Italian through and through to the nth degree. So, but no, Sean's a great guy, and they've done a good job, obviously, identifying a pretty good player.
Are you inspired by what he wears? Is this a good one for you, Nick?
I don't have a fedora like that.
If they could wear a vest version of that
with the fedora,
with the fedora.
Yeah, I don't think the vest go over the Italian heritage very well. So,
Nick, I feel like the poster child, if you will, for what we've been talking about, being ready for your moment at any point and then capitalizing on it, is a guy you know well, and everybody got to know because of the interception he has in the Super Bowl, and that's Malcolm Butler, a guy that when he gets the opportunity, finally in the Super Bowl, he makes the most of it. In a situation like that, when did you guys feel like, okay, he's ready for that opportunity? Because I feel like that's one of the key things, when you feel like a guy is ready for that opportunity that could come at any point.
No, it's a great question. I mean, just going back, we had a lot of players that were in a similar category in New England. I would say specific to Malcolm. Malcolm was a player who came to New England on a rookie tryout, rookie minicamp weekend. So he wasn't affiliated with the team. So he wasn't. We didn't even know who he was, let alone whether or not he'd be able to make somewhat of an impact. But he came in, he worked out rookie minicamp weekend. We signed to the 90-man roster. He ended up making the roster, and I think he was the fourth or fifth corner for most of the year. And then we had some things that happened and took place. But Malcolm was a player who showed up in practice, had a knack for getting his hands on the football. He just had a good he was natural just playing the ball.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are multiple examples, not only in New England, league-wide, where players aren't drafted. They just get another opportunity. Sometimes it changes scenery. So, and that's the beauty of this league. And I think the way we approach it here, and D'Amico and I have talked about it, we don't really care where you come from, how you got here. It's really about what you do with your opportunity when you're there. And we have a responsibility to equal the playing field. And the reality is that some teams say, well, this guy was drafted here, we're going to hold on as long as you can. I mean, at some point, if you have to cut your losses, then you just have to cut your losses and move on. So you need to have thick skin, no hard feelings, and try to make good decisions. And just understand if a player doesn't work out, just understand the rationale and the reasoning behind it, and then make sure that if you get into a situation moving forward, you don't want it to happen the same way.
Yep.
Nick, I'm always shouting out about people who make too big a deal about sacks. Except now, because Jonathan Grenard has 10, and this has only happened, double-digit sacks 5 times in the history of the franchise, or 5 players have done it. Watt did it multiple times, of course. But what about the kind of year Jonathan Grenard is having for you? I know it's not just about the sacks. It's about pressure and other things, but what about his game?
Yeah, John's had a good year, and I think the one thing about John, he's been available. And I think when you kind of look at the arc of his career, when he's been available and he's been out there, he's been productive. His rookie season really didn't do that much. His second season had a pretty good year. Last year, he had some bumps in the road, and this year, he's been able to be available and be out there on the field. So, has a good attitude. He works hard. He has a good skill set. He's got good playing strength. He has an ability to bend and get the edge. And I think the defensive line as a whole, we've gotten good production from that group, both on the perimeter and inside. So, it's a credit to Jacques and Coach Wright. And we play 8-9 players at the game each week. But John's taking advantage of his opportunity, and he's receiving the recognition that he deserved. It's based on what his performance has enabled him to receive some of the recognition that he's receiving.
Nick, I'm reminded as I look over at our other set and I see his name, Brevin Jordan, over there. You drafted him in the 5th round of 2021. What have you seen in the progress of Brevin? Has another couple of big catches last week in the rain, making some things happen. What have you seen from Brevin, and what more do you want to see? In particular, if Dalton's unable to go and you really need to continue to rely on Brevin in the passing game, what do you want to see even more from him?
Yeah, Brevin's been able to help us in the passing game. He's made some plays, and I think when you just look at the arc of his career, and he's shown the ability to do that. And I think one of the things that we liked about the player coming out of Miami was his ability with the ball after the catch. There's some players that once they get the ball in their hands, they do good things. You have some players that are more catch at contact or, yards at contact, yards at catch point. But Brevin's got good playing strength for his size. He's athletic. He runs well. He runs strong. He has the ability to break tackle. He's got good lower body strength. So I think the big thing is consistency. Any young player looking for consistency, like Brevin will tell you, he probably hasn't always been as consistent with his performance. There's been a myriad of reasons for that. But he's got a good attitude. He works hard. He's caught the ball, catching the ball at times. He had a drop the week before, but he came back, made some catches in difficult conditions. So, but Brevin's worked hard and he's put himself in a position to help the team, and that's all you can really ask.
Nick, Davis gets into the game late against the Jets. We don't know what's going to happen with CJ and the protocol and everything, but what can Davis learn? What could he learn all this time watching CJ, absorbing whatever he can absorb about this system, having played in the preseason, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'd say when you have an experience in the system, it always helps. And I'd say Zach's a good example, played 10, 11 games, and they didn't play for 2 or 3 games. And sometimes when that player goes back on the field, for whatever reason, he's more comfortable. Mm-hmm. So I would say that our room overall, like we feel good about all 3 players. Obviously, CJ's done a great job here this year. We'll kind of see how the week goes. Davis has played. He's played well with his opportunities. Case has a lot of experience, not only here in Houston over the course of his career, but he's played winning football. So we'll do what we feel makes the most sense for our team here, try to look at our options, and just whoever we have to put in a position that gives us the best chance to win on Sunday against Tennessee, then that's what we're going to have to do.
Nick, I know the fans in this town, if there's one team I know Marc would want to beat the Colts. I think most everybody else would want to beat the Titans. So let's get into the scouting report. We haven't seen them all year. We're going to see them twice in 3 weeks. Your scouting report on the Tennessee Titans as they are right now.
Yeah, improving football team. They've gone through, I'd say, a lot of change, injury related, some personnel related. But the hallmarks of the team, they run the football well. I would say, in addition to Derek, Spears has done a great job. He's really complimented Derek very well. He's a good player at Tulane. So good running game. Chig Garankwo, the tight end, is an explosive player at tight end, has some similarities to Brevin. And I'd say D-Hop's playing probably as well as he's had at any point in his career. He's one of the most targeted players in the league at his position. So wherever he is, you certainly have to be cognizant of him. D-Hop's been a good player for a long time, and he's certainly not slowing down. And Will's played better the more he's played. So big, strong arm. I mean, he has the ability to get the ball down the field and create explosive plays. He's very tough. He can make plays with his legs, and I think you kind of saw a little bit of everything in a Miami game there the other night. So offensively, they've got good skill. They've had a lot of change on the offensive front, on the offensive line, shuffled some guys in and out, and then defensively, it's one of the best red area defense in the league and really starts with the front. So, I mean, Jeffrey's, he's a badass. I mean, he's one of the best players in the league, whether or not he plays, but you always have to count for him. But they've gotten good production from Key. Landry's back this year. Has given him some good rush production off the edge. Aziz has done a good job at inside linebacker. They signed him, played with D'Amico in the group out there at San Francisco, leads him in tackles. In the secondary is where they probably had the most, I would say, change of variability. Trade and Byard, claim some players off of waivers, but they play fairly disciplined, very sound. They make you earn yards. So good run defense, good in the red area. They haven't taken the ball away as much. And then offensively, they have the ability to create explosive plays. In the kicking game, Zentner's actually punting there now. Ty was with us earlier in the year, punted the ball well against Miami. So they're a team that is going to keep the game close and then gives themselves an opportunity in the fourth quarter. And I think you saw everything kind of come to fruition there in the Miami game all the way to the end.
Yeah, they came back. You saw several upsets in the league this weekend. We're getting late in the year. I guess nothing surprises you anymore because the margin is paper thin, right?
It's very thin. And the reality is if you don't play the game the right way, it doesn't matter who you play. D'Amico has mentioned this. We've talked about it. Records in the end really don't matter. A record is really a snapshot of where you are present time, but you still have to go out there and play the game. So you have 60 minutes of football in front of you. So whoever executes better that day is probably going to win, and the team that doesn't probably won't. And as you get later in the year, you just run out of opportunities. So our focus right now is try to put everything we can into this week and then getting ready for a good Titans football team on the road who's playing well. So we'll see if we can make some improvements and adjustments relative to what we put on the field against the Jets.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question. I'm going to ask anyways. It is December, and we're playing important football. Do you sneak a peek at the scoreboard at times? Do you kind of pay attention to what's going on at times, like teams that are around us at the time, Nick? Or is it just we got to focus on our job and what we do?
Yeah, I think you just take a quick snapshot to kind of get an idea of what's going on. But in the end, you have to focus on yourself because if you don't take care of your business, nothing else really matters. So focus on our job. Yeah. Players internally have to focus on individually what they can do to help the team. So their preparation, their practice, their process, and be able to go out there and execute the game plan the right way, those are the things that are going to matter. The rest of it is for the fans, and I'm sure they'll have fun with it when they're doing it.
Yep.
I want to bring up the running the football topic this week, Nick, because in the first half it looked like, okay, there's some things going on, and then the second half kind of slowed down, and then the game kind of changed where you had to throw it a lot or whatever the case is. What about the state of the art, or the state of the union, rather, with the running game and where you're headed going into Tennessee?
Yeah, it's probably indicative of kind of where we've been all year. We've had our moments. We've had some opportunities where there's been some run lanes and we've been able to churn out some good runs, and there's been some other plays where either we don't get a hat on the right guy or the back misses a cut or a combination of things. We miss a block on the second level, or there's just a myriad of things. So it's going to be hard to run a football against this front. I mean, this is one of the better things that they do. So see if we can carve out some, positive yards. And I think the big thing with the running game, and sometimes it's volume and then just putting yourself in a position where it's 2nd and 6 or 7. It's not so much about getting a 30 or 40-yard run. It's just getting incremental progress and kind of putting yourself in a position offensively, where you can manage the sticks a little bit better.
I felt like we were behind the sticks with a number of times against the Jets on Sunday. Nick, you brought it up earlier. He's the one guy that in the division that I hate seeing Jeffrey Simmons. How do you prepare? It's been said, okay, he's probably not going to play, but You can't take that for granted. How do you kind of prepare for Simmons? Because I would imagine he's the kind of guy that, not that you have special game plans for, but he's a guy that can completely wreck the game in certain ways if he's playing and he's not totally accounted for. How do you kind of go about that preparation with Simmons?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they have a good front, so they have a lot of players that can. But when you have a player that can potentially impact the game in all areas, and Jeffrey's a 3-down player and he has front versatility, so I think the big thing, you have to have an awareness of understanding of the player, and if there's things that you can do to mitigate, I would say, his impact on the game, then you have to address those during the course of the week. So maybe it's the way you design a running game, or in certain protections, you're going to make sure that you get extra presence there. But if you do that, then you're going to be a little bit lighter on a guy like Landry or a guy like Key. So when you have a player that impacts the game that much, you just have to make sure that you don't let that player become such a large impact on the game where he completely wrecks the game or ruins it. So, and it's a credit to him. And I think his consistency and just his toughness and his playing strength and his ability to be a good run player and still impact the passing game, that's what kind of makes him unique, because not everybody can do that.
Right. I hate that guy. I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy. I hate seeing him on the other side of the field. I mean, he's actually
a great guy. I think he's their Walter Payton Man of the Year award.
Man of the Year award guy. I mean, it's incredible. I just hate seeing him because last year we ran that gauntlet of all those guys we were seeing, from Dexter to Simmons, and we saw him twice, and then Deron Payne and John Allen. We saw all those guys, and of course Quinnen we throw in there from last week. I can't stand Simmons.
Well, how about Dexter?
I don't want to see him.
Dexter Lawrence didn't play Monday night. His team won. Jeffrey Simmons didn't play. His team won. So you never know what's going to happen.
No,
well, it kind of goes back to what we talked about, like the depth of your team. You're going to need everybody at some point, and everybody has good players. So just because you don't have one said player doesn't mean you don't have an opportunity to go out there and play good football. You have to figure out a way. And that's what our job is to figure out a way each week to put ourselves in a position to have success.
Nick, there are 7 bowls on Saturday, only 7.
There's 7. I didn't realize they already started.
Yes. How do you deploy people this time of year, if at all? Because these are not the power programs playing in these early bowls. I don't know how you handle all that, because there might be some diamonds in the rough there. Right?
Very selectively. There's probably a good chance that we've probably seen just about every player in these respective teams throughout the course of the fall. So unless there's something specific that you need to see live, then you're probably not going to go watch the Bluebonnet Bowl or the Liberty Card, my ex tax bowl. Now we have the bowl coming in NRG the 27th, so we'll definitely be in attendance for that one. 2 pretty good teams, so I have the ability to. I haven't seen A&M this year. Saw Oklahoma State play against Houston, but it's really, you have to be selective, kind of pick and choose, and if there's really a reason that you need to be at the game.
You brought up, or it came up, the Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. That is John Weeks for the Houston Texans, who's been here for 1,000 years and does a very important job. And I liken him to a utility. It's the lights, it's the plumbing. If it goes off, everything's going to go wrong. But you kind of take it for granted sometimes, not you, but people, that job is done extremely well for so long.
If you want to be good in the kicking game, it all starts with the specialist, and nobody's done a better job over the course of his career with his craft and his job than John Weeks. And this award isn't about what he does on the football field. It's his impact that he's had in the community. But I think what it speaks to is just John's consistency, and just week after week, year after year, and he's reliable, and you could count on him to do the right thing, to be a great teammate, and go out there and perform his job. And we've been fortunate to be fairly productive in the kicking game, and it all starts with good specialists, and John is certainly at the forefront of that.
I was thinking about this, Nick, last weekend, because I'm watching your boss put on a helmet on College Game Day as the game day picker, and he puts on an old Navy helmet, which was freaking awesome to see. But it made me think about the Army-Navy game. Have you ever been to that game? Have you ever been to it and seen it up close? Because it was in Gillette last week.
I have not seen it live, just watched it from afar. But there's nothing like it. And everybody that's either been to it or experienced it just speaks to the impact that it's had. And I think the one thing I haven't had the ability to do, or haven't done yet, is actually see a game on campus at West Point. So it's that the academy experience, there's nothing like it in college football. But even just the pageantry and everything associated with that game, even when you watch it, it just has a different feel. And it's very unique, and there's really nothing like it.
All right, so Nick, we're going to Nashville. I know of an open mic night. Maybe that's not where you're going to be.
You guys will be there for the karaoke, I'm sure.
I might. You never know.
He will.
But speaking of, it's the music capital of the country, really, and country music, of course. But have you ever put on a cowboy hat here at the rodeo or something like that? Because I think I don't know if you've enjoyed the rodeo or gotten to do it yet here. Have you?
I have not put on a cowboy hat. We've seen the rodeo because they're here during March, during our, I would say, off season, if you will. So there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of dirt. There's a lot of activity in the building. So we get displaced. So
you don't go to the concerts or go to the rodeo part of it?
I haven't partaken, So
I think the girls would like it.
They
Nick.
probably will. We probably will have a conversation about now as you brought it up, Mark.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Wear the hat, get the boots. It's good stuff. All right, Nick, thanks a lot. Good luck this week.
Thanks, fellas.